He even went as far as saying 2% is enough. No, Kininda, come here, let me educate you.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a dog, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10. Like Daddy,
Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nogwazi Ndombela, also known as Gwazi Bear on all social media platforms. Do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you are a returning subby, welcome back, darling. Now guys, today I'm doing something a little bit different in the SENZO MEYIWA case. I usually bring you weekly updates, but today I decided, no, let me do this video because it seems our brigadier is a little bit confused when it comes to DNA evidence. And if he's confused, I'm sure there's a whole lot more of us that are confused when it comes to this DNA, because there's no way. And also, Brigadier is just misleading the court when it comes to this evidence of DNA. So let me tell you what my understanding is of this DNA evidence. And disclaimer, I am not a DNA expert. I have no expertise in this, but this is my understanding of the evidence that was before the court last year in October when Captain Masetla came through with the DNA results of all the 5 accused against the DNA that was found at the crime scene, as well as on the hat that was allegedly dropped by one of the suspects. So without wasting too much of your time, let us get into this video. Guys, don't forget to comment, engage with me down below. Don't forget to like this video. That's the second thing, most important, so that my video does reach a greater audience. And also, if you can, please do super thanks the channel. Let's get right into this video. Now, on the 10th of October 2023, Captain Masetla did come to the court to testify about DNA results, and these were results and samples that were taken from all the 5 accused, as well as some of the samples that were found in the crime scene and on a hat that was said to have been left by one of the suspects or one of the intruders that entered the Khumalo residence. Now, in his testimony, the witness does clearly state that all of the 5 accused are excluded from the DNA results. Now, what this means is that although there will be regions whereby their DNA is picked up, in order for the results to give a positive, you need the results to pick up on 16 of those regions. I wanted to go back into the evidence of Captain Masetla because there seems to be a confusion, and I even find myself being confused by Kininda because he's trying to convince the court that because there are some regions that picked up the accused, it means that the accused were actually there. He even went as far as saying 2% is enough. No, Kininda, come here, let me educate you. Now, the first thing that Captain Masetla does let the court know is that there was a mixed DNA that was found at the crime scene as well as on the hat. Now, what this means is that they were picking up both female and male characteristics in the DNA samples that were found. Now, when I get into the results, I am going to try and put up a little table that I formulated to make it easier for all of us to understand how this DNA works. But the first thing is that, so there was DNA of both a male and a female, which means that even if you tested Unogwazi, who has never even been to Phosphorus at that, there will be certain regions that will pick up Unogwazi because Unogwazi is a what? A female. And as I've already indicated, he does say that you need to pick up all 16 regions in order for that to be a match. So I'm going to get into the results that he shared with us with regards to the 5 accused that are before the court, so that we have a better understanding what exactly did he tell us about these results. Let me also put it on record that I say Kininda misled the court when he says that some of the other accused had no regions at all from the samples that were collected in the house. This statement is incorrect, and I will prove it in the next couple of minutes. Now, I am going to be looking down at my notes because I have it written down, so you will just excuse me looking down at the page as opposed to looking into the camera. I am going to start with the first region, which Masetla told us about, which is the gender region. Now, in this region, obviously because there was a mixed DNA of a male and a female, all 5 of the accused will have a positive in that region because they are all male, right? So firstly, that's the first region. All 5 of the accused are picked up in that region because of their gender. As I'm reading this is just the results on the DNA that was found at the crime scene. At a later stage, I will go into the DNA that was found on the hats. So right now we're just focusing purely on the DNA at the crime scene. So the second region is D8S1179. Now this region consists of 12, 13, 14, and 15. So in order for you to be a match, you either need to have a 12 and a 13, or a 12 and a 12, or a 13 and a 13, or a 14 and a 14, or a 13 and a 14. So as long as the numbers that appear on this certain region, you have them in your DNA, then you will be a match. So for Mapisa in this region, he had a 13 and a 13, which means that his DNA was picked up in the crime scene for that. Ntanzi's DNA, Ntanzi had a 12 and a 14, which means his DNA also was picked up in that region. Mncube had a 12 and a 14. I just want to bring your attention to this. Ntanzi and Mncube have the same DNA of 12 and 14 in this region. Mncube was a 12 and 14, so his DNA was picked up. Ntuli is a 13 and 13, his DNA was picked up. Sibiya is a 13 and a 14, his DNA was picked up. So in the second region, all 5 of the accusers' DNA is picked up in this region, which now raises the concern, because Gininda says there are some of the accused that their DNA was not matched at all. This is incorrect, because as you can see, Ntuli, who was said to be in the car and never even entered the Khumalo residence, does have DNA that is picked up inside the crime scene. Sibiya, who is also another one who was said to not have entered the house, also has DNA in region 2, which is picked up in the crime scene. The third region is D21S11, which has 27, 28, 29, and 30. And accused number 4, Mapisa, has a 28 and a 30.2. Now, just because he has a 28, it doesn't mean that his DNA is picked up, because as you can see, he has a 30.2, which is not in the region of the DNA sample that was found at the crime scene. So that doesn't count Mapisa in. Ntanzi has 29 and 36, and because he has the 29, it does not mean that his DNA is picked up, because he has 36, which is not included in the region of the DNA that was found in the crime scene. Mncube, on the other hand, has 28 and 28. Now, because he has 28 and 28, and 28 does appear on this DNA, Mncube's DNA in this third region is in fact positive in that DNA. And Ntuli has a 28 and 30. And remember, yet again, Ntuli did not enter the house, but his DNA is picked up in the crime scene, because he has a 28 and 30, and 28 and 30 is in this region. And then Sibiya has a 29 and 31, and because he has 31 and 31 isn't in the DNA sample from the crime scene, he is then excluded from that particular region. The fourth region is D7S820, which has 10, 11, and 12. Now, with this one, accused number 4, Mapisa, has 9 and 9, which means his DNA is excluded. Ntanzi has 11 and 11, because it's 2 11s and there is 11 in this region. Ntanzi is included. Accused number 3 has 9 and 11, and because he has 9 and 9 isn't included in this region, his DNA isn't counted. Ntuli has 8 and 11, and Ntuli is also not included in this one. And then Sibiya has 11 and 11, just like Ntanzi, which means that he's also included. I also want to draw your attention to this point, that Sibiya and Ntanzi have a similar DNA. So what does that mean? Because Sibiya didn't go into the house, but he also has 11 and 11, and there's 11 in the sample. Does that now automatically mean Sibiya was at the house? No, Kinind. The fifth region is CSF1PO, which has 8, 10, and 12. And now, because Mapisa already had so many DNA samples that were not matching to the samples from the house, Captain Masetla decided not to continue testing Mapisa's DNA, because he says that because he already doesn't match in about 3 of them, then there's no need to continue. And Baloyi allowed this on the 10th of October in 2023, but surprisingly, when it came to Ntanzi and the rest of the accused, he wanted him to read everything, even though it excluded them from the crime scene. So in this particular region, we don't have the results for accused number 3. However, Ndanzi was a 10 and a 10, which is a match for the region. And Ncube as well was a 10 and a 10. And again, I want to point it out, Ncube and Ndanzi in this particular region have the same DNA. And then with Ntuli, they did not have any results because I think Ntuli refused to be tested when they came to him or something, but they didn't have a result for him there. And then for accused number 1, Usbiya, he had 11 and a 12, which excluded his DNA because there is no 11 in this region. The next region is D3S1356, which has 14, 15, and 16. And this one, Mapisa was included because he had 16 and 16. Ndanzi was included because he also had 16 and 16. Ncube also had 16 and 16. So guys, do you see how it is possible for your DNA to pick up? Because Ncube, Ndanzi, and Mapisa have the same 16 and 16 in this particular region. Ntuli for this one had 14 and 15, which means he's also included because 14 and 15 are both in the region. And then Sbiya was excluded because he had 14 and 17 does not appear in this region. The next one is TH01, which has 7 and 8. Mapisa's results were not called out in court on the day, and Ndanzi's ones are 7 and 9. And because this region doesn't have a 9, that excluded Ndanzi. Ncube had an 8 and an 8. This does include him in this particular region. Ntuli has no results for that one, and Sbiya is a 7 and a 9. And because a 9 isn't in this region, his DNA was excluded. The next one is D13S317, which has 12 and 12. Mapisa's results were not read in court. Ndanzi has 11 and a 12, and because there's no 11 in this region, Ndanzi was excluded. Ncube has a 12 and a 13, and because there's no 13 in this region, he was excluded. Ntuli has a 12 and 14, and he was excluded. And then accused number 1, Sbiya, had 10 and 11. That means he is excluded. The next one is D16S539, which had 9, 11, 12, and 14. Mapisa's results, as I've indicated, will not be a part of this. So I'm not going to be reading Mapisa's results with all of the next coming 6 or 5 regions. And Ndanzi's results were 11 and 12, which were a match. Ncube's results were a 9 and 10, which do not match. Accused number 5 didn't have DNA on that sample, and then accused number 1 had 10 and 12, which was a no match. The next region is D2S1338, which has 19 and 24. Ndanzi has 16 and 19, which means he is excluded because there is no 19 in this region. Ncube had 21 and 25. He's also excluded. Accused number 5, there was no DNA. Accused number 1 had 21 and 21, which also excluded him from this region. The next region is D19S433, and the numbers for this one is 7, 11, 13, 14, and 15.2. Now, Ndanzi for this one has 13 and 14, which included him in the DNA. Accused number 3 has 12.2 and 12.2, which means he's excluded from this. Accused number 5 had no DNA in this one, and accused number 1 had 12 and 15, which excluded him from the sample. The next one is VWA, which has 16, 18, and 19. Ndanzi has 15 and 16, which means he's excluded from this region. Ncube had 16 and 17. He's also excluded. Ntuli also had 16 and 17, which means he's also excluded. Also, I want to bring it out that Ncube and Ntuli in this particular region have the same DNA. Accused number 1, Sbiya, had 15 and 17, which excluded him from this region. The next region is TPOX, which has 8, 9, 10, and 11. Ndanzi has 8 and 11, which is a match because there is an 8 and 11 in the region. Ncube as well has an 8 and 11. Ntuli had no DNA, and accused number 1 had 9 and 11. And as you can see, Ntuli and Ndanzi have the same DNA in this particular region. The next one is D18S51, which has 17, 18, and 20. Ntanzi has 14 and 18, which is a non-match for this region. Accused number 3 has 10 and 14, which is a non-match for this region as well. Accused number 5 has 15 and 20, also a non-match in this region. Accused number 1 has 19 and 19, which is also a mismatch in this particular region. The next one is D5S818, which has 11, 12, and 13. And accused number 4, now Mapisa becomes included in this one because he has 13 and 13. Ntanzi has 11 and 13, that also includes Ntanzi in this one. Nube has 10 and 13, which means that he's excluded in this one because there's no 10 in this region. Ntuli has 11 and 12, which means he's included in this DNA region. And then accused number 1 has 12 and 12, which means he's also included in this region. Now for the very last one, which is the 16th region, it's FGA. This one includes 23, 24, and 26. Mapisa is not a part of this sample. And Ntanzi has 23 and 23, which is a match. Accused number 3 has 21.2 and 23, which is a non-match. Accused number 5 has 20 and 21, which is a non-match. And accused number 1 has 22 and 25, which is a non-match. Now, with regards to these particular results with the DNA in the house, this is what all 5 of the accused scored on these results. Ntanzi scored a 10 out of 16, which is still not sufficient to say he was at the house. Mapisa scored a 4 out of 16, which also indicates that it is not sufficient to point out that he was in the house. Nube got a 7 out of 16, also not sufficient. And with Unkani, because there are some regions that didn't have DNA at all, it means that they only worked on a score of 10, which means he scored a 5 out of 10. And the other 6 results, there was no DNA. Now I'm going to go into the DNA results of the hat. Now guys, if we remember clearly, it was said that the person who wore this particular hat is the first intruder, which they are saying is accused number 3. So you would expect that most of the DNA samples or the DNA results would reflect a higher result when it comes to accused number 3, but that is not the case. So let's get into the hat results. Now on D8S1179, when it comes to the hat, the DNA on that hat is 14 and 15 in that particular region. And Mapisa scores a 13 and 13, and there is no 13 in this region, so he's excluded. Ntanzi scores a 12 and a 14, so he's also excluded. Nube scores a 12 and a 14, exactly like Ntanzi, and that means he's excluded as well. Ntuli scores a 13 and 13, which means he's also excluded. And Spiya scores a 13 and 14, which means he's also excluded in this particular region. In the second region, which is D21S11, the numbers there are 28, 31, and 31.2. Mapisa has a 28 and a 30.2, which means he's excluded. Ntanzi has 29 and 36, which means he's excluded. Accused number 3, Mube, has 28 and 28, which includes him in this particular region. Ntuli has a 28 and 30, which excludes him in this region. Spiya has 29 and 31, which also excludes him in this region. Now, when it comes to the gender, because they are all male and there was a mixed DNA in this hat, all of the 5 accused have a positive when it comes to this particular region, which is the gender region. The next region is D75820, which has an 8, a 10, and an 11. Accused number 4, Mapisa, has a 9 and 9, which excludes him. Ntanzi has 11 and 11, which includes him in this DNA region. Nube has a 9 and 11, which excludes him in this region. Ntuli has an 8 and 11, which includes him in this region. And then Spiya has 11 and 11, same as Ntanzi, which includes him in this particular region. The next region is CSFIPO, which has an 8, 10, 12, and 13. Mapisa's results were not read on this one. And then Ntanzi has a 10 and a 10, which includes him. Nube has a 10 and a 10, which includes him as well. There was no DNA for Runtuli on this one, and Sibiya has 11 and 12 in this region, which excludes him. The next region is D3S1358, which has 14, 16, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Danzi has 16 and 16, which includes him. Nube has 16 and 16, which includes him. It's so funny how Nube and Danzi seem to have similar DNA patterns in different regions. But anyway, asikolab. Nduli has 14 and 15, also includes him. Sibiya has 14 and 17. This also includes Sibiya. The THO1 in the het DNA is 6, 7, and 8. Danzi has 7 and 9, that means he's excluded. Nube has 8 and 8, which means he's included. There's no DNA for Nduli on this one. And Sibiya has 7 and 9, which means he's excluded. The next sample is D13S317, which has 11 and 11. Ndanzi has 12 and 13. He's excluded from that one. Nube has 12 and 13 as well. He's also excluded. Nduli has 12 and 14. He's also excluded. And Sibiya has 10 and 11, which excludes him from this region as well. The next region is D16S539, which has 10 and 11. Ndanzi and Mapisa don't have results on this one. Nube has 9 and 10, which excludes him. Nduli has no DNA on this one. And Sibiya has a 10 and 12, which excludes him from this region. The next region is D2S1338, which has 16, 20, and 21. Danzi has 16 and 19, excluded. Nube has 21 and 25, excluded. No DNA for accused number 5. Sibiya has 21 and 21, which includes him in this region. The next region is D19S433, which has 11, 13, and 14. Danzi has 13 and 14, so he's included in this. Nube has 12.2 and 12.2, so he's excluded. Then Nduli has no DNA on this one, and Sibiya has 12 and 15, that excludes him. The next one is VWA, which has 16, 17, and 19. Ndanzi has 15 and 16, which excludes him. Nube has 16 and 17, which includes him. Nduli has 16 and 17, same as Nube, which includes him. And Sibiya has 15 and 17, which excludes him. The next one is TPOX, which has 6, 8, 9, and 11. Danzi has 8 and 11, so he's included. Nube has 8 and 11, so he's also included. Nduli, there was no DNA on this one. And Sibiya has 9 and 11, so he's also included in this region. The next region is D18S51, which has 17 and 18. Danzi has 14 and 18, which excludes him in this DNA region. Nube has 10 and 14, also excluded. Nduli has 15 and 20, also excluded. And Sibiya has 19 and 19, which also excludes him. The second last one is D5S818, which has 11, 12, and 13. Danzi has 11 and 13, so he's a match for that region. Nube has 10 and 13, so he has no match for that region. Nduli has 11 and 12, so he's a match for that region. And Sibiya has 12 and 12, so he's also a match in that region. The last one is DGA and has 22 and 23 in that region. Ndanzi does not have a match in that region. Nube has 21.2 and 23, which is not a match in that region. Nduli has 20 and 21, which is a non-match in that region. And Sibiya has 22 and 25, which is a non-match. So overall, the results for the het say that Mapisa only had a match of 2 out of 16. Ndanzi had a match of 7 out of 16. Nube had a match of 6 out of 16, which is surprising how Ndanzi would have a bigger match than Nube when Nube is the one who was said to have worn the hat. And Nduli, because 6 of the DNA samples were not taken, it means that his results were out of 10 as opposed to 16. So he got a score of 3 out of 10 3 out of 10, and Sibiya got a score which is the same as Umncube of a 6 out of 10. Considering that Sibiya was never said to have entered that house, isn't that surprising? So you see how Brigadier Gininda's 2% conclusion is ridiculous. Ridiculous. If I was him, I would take it back. Guys, that is the evidence. And in summary of these results, then Captain Masetla then says the donors were all excluded as the donors of the swab, which was the swab that was taken from inside the house, as well as Hat B. So in conclusion, guys, these people's DNA is not a match. They are excluded. It doesn't matter that they appear in 4 regions. Them appearing in 4 regions doesn't mean that they were there. I hope that this clears up the confusion about the DNA and Gininda saying 2% is enough, and all of you can see that Gininda really does not understand DNA. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next one. Bye.